Good morning, all of you.
Good morning,
Good
ma'am.
morning, ma'am.
Good
Good
morning,
morning,
ma'am.
Good
ma'am.
morning, ma'am.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, ma'am.
Yes, my dears, good morning to all of you. So, we will continue with the chapter Attempts to Civilize and Educate the Native. And till now, we have had a look at the Orientalists, the Anglicists, and the Woods Dispatch of 1854. Now, today we'll have a look at what was the system of education before the Britishers came to India or pre British times. Now, have you ever wondered that how the children were taught during that time? And now, if there were schools in India before the Britishers came here, so what happened to them under the British rule? Obviously, you know we have had schools before the Britishers came to India. So we will also have a look as to what happened to those schools under the new rules and regulations with the Britishers imposed. Now, the information about the indigenous means the local, the native education which is available today. Now, it belongs especially to the 1820s and the 1830 period. Uh, Now, during that time, education was imparted mainly through the pathshalas, the madrasas, and the gurukuls. Now, what was the gurukul system of education? Can anyone tell me that? Gurukul system? Yes, come on, class 8. Gurukul system of education. Why is there so much silence? You have never heard about Gurukul? Class, are you able to hear my voice?
Ma'am, ma'am, importance of practical knowledge.
Anything else that is very uh, distinctive about the Gurukul system of education as compared to the other schools, as compared to madrasas and pathshalas? There was something very special about the Gurukul system of education. Now, under the Gurukul system, the students they used to leave their houses and they went to stay with their gurus at their ashrams. Have you never heard about that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
No, ma'am.
Alright, so under the Gurukul system, the students they used to leave their houses and they used to go and stay with the Guru at his ashram, and there the Guru imparted knowledge to the students. And so, these three institutions, the Pathshalas, the Madrasas, and the Gurukul, they were the source of traditional knowledge system in India, and it played a very important role in the Indian education. Now, a very decisive point it emerged from the education surveys which were conducted by William Adams, and he found out that there existed about 1 lakh village schools in Bengal and Bihar around the 1830s. So he found out through his education surveys that around 1 lakh schools they existed, 1 lakh village schools they existed around Bihar and Bengal. And Thomas Munro, he said he observed that at that time every village had a school. And so though the number of schools were 1 lakh, but the students which received who received education in these schools were about 20 lakh. And these institutions normally were put up by wealthy people, and many times these institutions were also started by a guru at his ashram. Now, what was the system of education? So, we had the Pathshalas, the Madrasas, and the Gurukuls, but what was the system of education? Now, the system of education at that time it was quite flexible, and there was no fixed fee, no printed books, no separate school buildings, no blackboards, no roll call registers, and no annual examinations. So, I think most of you would like that if we have it now. What do you think?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. All right. And in some cases, classes were held under a banyan tree. So, how would you like to have your class under a banyan tree or in the corner of a village shop? Yes, or temple, or leave your house and go and stay at Guru's place, Guru's ashram. Would you like that? No gadgets.
No, ma'am.
No,
No,
ma'am.
ma'am.
I know. All right. And the fee also it depended upon the income of the parents, and the rich paid more, the poor they paid less. Teaching was oral, and the guru he taught according to the needs of the students. So guru, as per uh, his means what he inferred, as per his inference about the students, he taught according to the needs of the students. The students, they were not made to sit in separate classes, and instead all the students, they sat together in one place, and the guru he interacted individually, separately with groups, and imparted them different levels of learning or different levels of education. Then William Adams he also discovered that the local system, the system of education, is suited to the local needs of the people. And for example, classes were not held during the harvest time, because the children of the farmers, they had to go to help in the harvest and all in harvesting and all that. And so the pathshalas and madrasas and all that, they remain closed during the harvest time. And once again, after the crops had been cut and the grains had been stored, again classes were resumed. So basically what it meant, that even the children of the farmers, they could also study in schools. So that was the system of education pre-British India, in pre-British India. Now after the Britishers came to India, obviously there were new rules and new regulations, new methods. Let's see what happened to these schools under the Britishers. Now up to the mid 19th century, the East India Company, they were concerned only with higher education, and so it allowed the pathshalas to run as they wanted, and did not interfere much in their working. But after the Woods Dispatch of 1854, the company it decided that it wanted to improve the education system of India, and so they thought that this could not be done without imposing proper rules and regulations and routines, and also having a regular inspection of the schools. And so how was it done? The Britishers, they employed a number of government pundits or government officials, and these pundits, they were to be given charge of three or four or five schools, and they used to visit the pathshalas, and then they tried to improve the standard of education there. Now each guru he was now made to submit periodic reports about the school and the students, and also to take classes according to fixed timetable. Then the students were now taught based on textbooks, and learning was to be tested through annual examinations. Then the students, they were asked to pay a regular fee, attend classes, sit on benches, and be in discipline. So the pathshalas which accepted this new system of education, they were given help, grants by the government. But all those who were unwilling to work under this new system of education, they received no government support. Now these new rules and regulations, they had other consequences also, and we just now saw that in the earlier system, the children of the farmers families, they were also able to attend the school because the timetable was flexible. But this new system, it required regular attendance, and so the children of the farmers who had to work in the fields during harvest time, now they were unable to attend the school. And according to the Britishers, the inability to attend regular school, now it was seen as an act of indiscipline. Now, how education spread under the Britishers? Now, in the early 19th century, many thinkers from different parts of India, they thought that now education should be spread to the masses also, and to other people also. So, some Indians thought that Western education it would help modernize India, and they thought and they urged the Britishers to open more schools and more colleges and more universities. But there were some who reacted against the Western education, and two such individuals were Rabindranath Tagore and Mahatma Gandhi. So let's have a look at what was Mahatma Gandhi's take on education. Now, Gandhiji, he was in South Africa practicing law, and what he experienced there, it changed his whole outlook on politics, as also his views on how education can help in the struggle for independence. While he was in South Africa also a system of racial discrimination was being followed by the white against the native blacks. That was called as the system of apartheid. It was a system of racial discrimination special to South Africa, and so there the whites, they ill treated the blacks, and they had everything separate for the blacks, and for the whites, the blacks, they could not even go to the areas where the white lives. So there was discrimination, and there was segregation also. And so while he was there, his outlook was changed on politics and also the need of education for the struggle of independence. And now he himself has been a beneficiary, means he has received the benefits of Western education for many years. And while he was in South Africa, he urged the other Indians also to take advantage of the education. But when he was in mid 30s, his total outlook changed, and he became so opposed to the British or the English education that he wrote that it was a rotten education. And now when we impart English education to the people, we are simply making them slaves. And then he also said that by imparting English to the Indians here in India, we had made them slaves. And he was very angry that he had to speak about independence in a language which is foreign, means English language, and that he was also not able to practice law in his own mother tongue. So he was angry about that. And under the British rule, the English was the official language, and so all official work was done in English language. So all official documents, they were in English, and the best newspapers, they were printed in English, and the education was carried out in English for the upper section of the Indian society. And Gandhiji, he did not blame the European officials for all this, because they thought that it was very logical that they want a particular set of Indians, educated Indians, who would be taught in the English way, Western education, having their thoughts and values and customs. And so that when these people would be taught the English education, the Western education, and will be taught the customs and values and traditions of the West, then they will become supporters of the British rule in India, and this in turn would consolidate or strengthen their rule in India. So he thought that it was very logical for them to promote Western education, but he blamed his fellow Indians for accepting this particular situation. And later in his life, he declared that real freedom will come only when we free ourselves from this domination of Western education, Western culture, and Western way of living, which had been fixed or established in us by the Britishers. And so it led him to say that emancipation means freedom from the Western culture would be the real freedom for the Indians or for us. So that was Gandhiji's view on Western or English education. We'll have more about it, but let's see what were the evil effects of colonial education. Now Gandhiji, we are continuing with what his views were on education or the Western education. And Gandhiji argued that colonial education, it created an inferiority complex in children, and destroyed the pride that they had in their culture. Now also many times you see it that people who are not able to speak English properly, many times people, they look down on them. And so the people also, those who don't know good English and those who are not very conversant in English, certain times they feel inferior because they are not able to speak in that language. And so Gandhiji thought that colonial education, it created this inferiority complex in children, and it destroyed the pride that the people had in their own culture. And so Gandhiji thought that this colonial or modern education, it was sinful, it was poisonous, and it made the Indians slaves to a foreign language and culture. Now, Gandhiji, he wanted an education for the Indians that would help the Indians to recover their sense of dignity and self-respect. And so he believed that Indian languages should be made the medium of instruction in India, in Indian schools. And according to Gandhiji, English language, it crippled Indians. uh, Cripple, what does crippled means? Which people we call crippled? Yes, come on, class 8.
Ma'am, those people who cannot do anything properly.
Alright, so crippled, it could be physical crippleness, could be in any way like your limbs, any of your limbs, either hands or your legs not working, or your mind not working properly. So cripple we mainly use for the limbs basically, like your hands and legs not working properly. So what he thought that English, it crippled the Indians so that they are not able to do their work on their own properly. And so English educated Indians spoke a foreign tongue. And you know what happened, the Indians who were at that time educated in in English language, now they started speaking in a different or a foreign language, and they started to despise, look down on the Indian culture. And they also failed to connect to the local people or the masses, the crowds here in India. So Gandhiji, he said that education should be able to develop a person's mind and soul. Now, simply learning to read and write, it cannot be counted as education. And by education, Gandhiji, he meant an all round development of a individual or a child, means his body, mind and spirit. So Mahatma Gandhi, he not only rejected the Western education, but he also put forward an alternative form of education. And first of all, he was totally opposed to the modern machinery, means this whole modern system of education. And he was even shocked by the conditions of women who were working in the mills of Bombay. And so he made a point that that they were introduced, that before they were introduced, these women were not starving. So he said that before these mills came into being, so the women, they were working in the mills, factories of Bombay. So when Gandhiji saw the bad condition of the women workers there, he said that even before the mills were there, these women were not starving, so why go and work in these mills? And within this context, for the need of a machineless society, so Gandhiji, he stood for a machineless society, and he developed his ideas on education. Let's see what his ideas were. The core of his proposal was the introduction of productive handicrafts in the school curriculum. So what he wanted, that handicrafts should be uh, handicrafts should be taught in the schools, how to do various crafts and work skills which people can do with their hands, and so that which are productive also, means through which the people can earn money also. And so his idea was not simply just to introduce handicrafts as a compulsory school subject, but also to make the learning of craft as the centerpiece or the main pivot or the central or the focal point of the entire system of education. And so basically it meant a whole change, a very radical, means complete change of the education system in India. And here, in India before that, the productive handicrafts, they had been associated with the lowest groups in the hierarchy of the caste system. You know, we had the caste system. How many castes we had? Yes, class 8. How many castes do we had under the caste system which were prevalent? 4. What were they?
Ma'am, Brahman,
Ma'am, Brahman, Vaishyas and Shudras.
Brahmans. Second is
Vaishyas.
Kshatriyas. So Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishya and Shudras. And so earlier this knowledge of handicrafts, it was basically associated with the lowest groups in this hierarchy of the caste system. And so knowledge of production like spinning, weaving, pottery making, now it has said to be the monopoly of specific castes in our caste system, and those castes would belong to the lower strata of the society. And so many of them who did these crafts and all that skills, now they belong to the category of the untouchables. Have you heard the name of the untouchables before?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so who were the untouchables? Why they were called untouchables?
Ma'am, they were considered to be not good.
Anything else?
Ma'am, because they were of lower caste.
They belong to the lower caste, and it was thought that just by touching them, they can pollute you and make you dirty also. So, people did not touch them, and that is why they were called as untouchables. And what name did Gandhiji gave to the untouchables?
Mom, Dalits.
No, no, he did not give the name Dalits. What was the name Gandhiji gave to the untouchables?
Scheduled caste.
No, he called them Harijans. What does Harijan mean? Hari Jan. Yes. Hari we use for God and Jan for people.
Ma'am,
So
Lord Narayan's people.
So God's people or people of God, and so he called them Harijans. Now, so most of the people earlier who were involved in these handicrafts and all, they belong to the lower strata of the society, and many times they belong to the untouchables also. And so, Indian own tradition of education as well as the colonial system of education, and now both had emphasized skills such as literacy and so basically, according to the Indian system of education which was prevalent here in India, and also according to the colonial education, this skills of acquiring knowledge and the ability to be literate, to know how to read and write, it belonged to the upper classes or the upper caste as a monopoly, and the lower section of the lower strata, you can say, of the people, they were not taught, they did not become literate, and they simply survive by learning these crafts and all that. Okay, so Mahatma Gandhi curriculum of what he called as basic education, now it basically favored the child belonging to the lower stratum or the lower strata of society, and in such a way so that there would be transformation in the society, means whole the society should be transformed. And according to this basic education or Gandhiji's system of education, it sought to alter the symbolic meaning of education. So Gandhiji, he tried to basically change the meaning of education and to change the established structure of opportunities for education. These opportunities of education were there only for the upper section of the society or the upper caste and not for the lower caste. So he wanted to change all this, and so his system of education favored the child which belonged to the lower strata of the society. And so now the question is this: why did Gandhiji propose the introduction of productive handicrafts in the school system? Now, what he really wanted was that the schools should be self-supporting as far as possible. Alright, and now there were two reasons why he wanted that. Now, first, why he wanted the schools to be self-sufficient and not to be in need of taking money and grants from others. So, first was that India being a poor society, now they could not afford to provide education for all children unless the schools are able to provide or generate resources, money resources from within only. And so that is why he thought that the schools should become self-supporting. And how? They should learn productive handicrafts, and by selling them, using those skills, you can earn money, you can generate your own resources. And second, the more financially independent the schools were, the more politically independent they could be. And the second reason was that if the schools were financially independent, then obviously they won't be dependent on the Britishers, and then Indians will also become politically independent and not be dependent on the Britishers anymore. And above all, he valued self sufficiency and autonomy. So Gandhiji, he valued that everyone should be self-sufficient and not be dependent on others, and autonomy. Autonomy means freedom. So Gandhiji, he stood for self-sufficiency and freedom of the individual, the society also. And these were the main reasons for his vision of an independent India, which was made up of autonomous village communities to survive. So basically what he wanted, that India should be made up of autonomous village communities, means free village communities, and so that is what his vision was of an independent India, that in independent India even the poor and the poorest of the people, they should be self-sufficient and free. So that was Gandhiji's view on education, and I think I'll stop here, and when we meet again, then we will continue with Tagore's view on education, and in that day we will also try to mark the exercises and the question answers. Have you all understood? Any questions, anyone?
Mom.
All right.
No, ma'am.
Okay, my dear.